The Diary of Thoughts, Part 7. Evolution, Science and Relationships. Written by c.Pacheco. The War of the Worlds was the title of a novel written by H.G. Wells that I never forgot about. Not because it concerned a science fiction context, but mostly because I always related it to another subject, namely the human one regarding relationships. In reality, we humans are always at war with each other because our personal worlds are completely different. It's a fact that each one of us is a different world that interacts with other millions of different worlds, being our world, our reality, and for others a virtual one. These various worlds or dimensions originate the reason why we are constantly living others' virtual worlds or realities. Different worlds with a different imagination, with different expressions of creation. The world of a child is an entirely different reality of the world of an adult. When we reach adulthood, everything looks different from their dimensions to its significance. The same environment of today seemed so big when we were little, and the significance of a small piece of wood was even more important since we used to make a toy from it and play hours in a row. Within ourselves there are different worlds with different types of expression in time. We all have our individual time that is related to the interpretation of our existence. Different worlds are nothing but the mirror of an infinitive chain of creation, manifested by millions of souls according to their reality, their time, the expression of life herself and her creation through multiple manifestations expressed by human beings through the intelligence that was given to them by Mother Creation. Living in society is not easy. We can say that society is a school and we all make part of it. Like in any other school, there are obligations. In our daily lives we have the obligation to listen, and after that we have the duty to teach and share the knowledge that we obtained from others. The act to learn and teach is extensive to a daily relationship imposed by society. Without knowing, we all are learning and teaching each other at the same time. Some people just don't listen, others refuse or are afraid to teach. They refuse to share their learning, their thoughts, and are afraid to listen. Some people just don't listen to us simply because they are not able to listen, but still thinking that others have the obligation to listen to them. Those people always end by talking to themselves, period. Some people just close their inner doors to the world and live just for themselves. Their notions or needs about sharing their existence with others just don't exist, or if it's there, it's continually oppressed. This lack of the notion of sharing can also be called selfishness. There are various degrees of selfishness. Some people don't know they are selfish. At the limit, there is a certain level of selfishness in each one of us. However, that selfishness has to be examined and controlled. Some talented people don't share their gift with others, namely their capacities and potentials. In this case, talent becomes strictly individual, and some individuals who have this faculty are not aware of that fact, or if they are, they live in a very selfish way but ignoring it. When some people say, everyone for themselves, they are lying, because, somehow, they are always searching for answers and solutions coming from others, and finally, feel alone when there is nobody around to bring them the eventual answers that they need to have in their lives. Let me clarify that the phrase "I used everyone for themselves" is very subjective, as it can originate a distance between other people and us, or only create the right notion of thinking about yourself. Both of those notions have to be measured in a reasonable way. In school, we all learned about multiple subjects in different fields, but nobody teaches us about how to relate with others. Relation is an element present in every single action and thing in life. There is a relation between everything in nature, between everything in the universe. There is a relation between our thoughts and our actions, and there is a relation between our actions and the consequences that they can eventually cause around us, good or bad. Everything is interdependent. Through history, we can learn about the evolution of society in spite of all the problems that make part of that process. This evolution is expressed by social, economical, and technological changes that implicate that intellectual maturation. In human terms, notions were created about freedom and democracy to liberate society from their dependency on imposed political, religious, and social systems that reigned through centuries. The evolution of science reached a very high level in a period of 60 years. We can say that the concentration of most of the development that we have nowadays at our disposal was generated during the last half a century. This development is nothing but a natural process of information brought by our thoughts and brought by the logic of creation. As this process never stops, Science and technology has become a fundamental component of our daily lives. The internet, mobile phones, satellites, multimedia and communication that work faster and faster, much faster than our natural rhythm of reasoning, were created by the human being. The speed of reasoning and speed of acting are present in our lives and imposing themselves more and more every day. Human beings are completely dependent on technology, almost obsessed, forgetting about the fundamental rules of society as respect, honesty, friendship and love. Nowadays, people don't have the time to think about those values. People don't know how to relate with each other, which translates a dreadful premonition about the way the future generations will be raised. Since childhood corresponds to the most precious learning periods of our lives, I wonder how they will behave and react in the future. The word privacy is something that no longer exists, as we are constantly captured by other people's cameras or by government public video systems of control of the masses, also called population, with the argument to avoid criminality. This abuse of individual rights is flagrant, but it is one of the prices that we have to pay for our so-called technological evolution. For instance, criminality could be finished the moment they wanted, but is not convenient, because if criminality didn't exist, there would be no need to have courts and lawyers along with the persecutors of the ones who contradict the established law. The evolution of science and technology goes in an exponential direction, but the research about our spirits and all the answers that are still hidden in billions of minds are still ignored. One day I wrote a small article about the invisible balance that puts in evidence a certain exaggeration from science and related technology towards society. It goes like this. The invisible balance. When I wake up in the morning, I have the same sensation as any other human being, at least I think that is so. I have the same instincts to surmount another day with all its moments of achievements, events, good and bad moments. I also put the same questions that are living in everybody's subconscious, which leads us to the same interrogations that represent a constant for each single intelligent form of life. For what purpose are we here? Everybody knows that every little thing that happens in life is connected to each other. The thing is that we cannot follow that logic and invisible balance that is imposed to the human being, even considering the degree of evolution and technology that was achieved by society, step by step, all along those centuries. Then comes the moment to read some articles in newspapers and books to try to follow at what point the human knowledge had led us, to the conclusions of the people who are deeply involved in that type of research that conducts to numerous explanations, some from scientists, other from philosophers, even esoteric preachers. For individuals who are mere followers of all those conclusions, these explanations might be plausible, but for others, it can just represent some suppositions based on research about our origins. Some people pose the question about how scientists can pronounce themselves about natural events that occurred some millions of years ago. Infinity and eternity implies the notion of never-ending, though the possible conclusions about this subject are directly correlated to this resident doubt. The fact that humanity poses the same questions about these two definitions also demonstrates that there is a direct connection between their inner instincts and this intellectual or scientific approach. These issues of infinity and eternity are related in the same way to the notions of life and death that all people have within their minds from the moment they are born. At this point, there are two interrogations on the table: why life and why death? On the other hand, as we are submitted to our reality, we are conditioned to the limitation or ignorance that was imposed on us by the creation herself. We keep on searching for answers that are substantiated under designations of science, philosophy or religion, mentioning the usual terms of its appliance in society. These appliances had a particular goal but were created by men, but surely not by the creation. There is one problem. Even without mentioning the name of the most famous scientists, without knowing half the percent of all the theories that are concentrated around this theme, people reach conclusions that match some results of any research in this direction, mostly because the doubt about this kind of research always subsists. If we asked Albert Einstein or any other great scientist of the actuality to put on a dashboard the formula that could translate their IQ, they would not be able to do it. By this fact, this translates the message that can explain very clearly that some things will never be explained. Also, this simple conclusion is extensive to multiple circumstances in life, mostly related to feelings and faith. As a matter of fact, nobody can translate in a mathematical way their feelings of love, happiness, sadness, joy, anger and their natural implications nor their beliefs about multiple religious, moral and existential values. Scientists that won Nobel Prizes were already able to study and put in writing the behavior of man in society under the form of mathematical equations, namely their attitude within the community. Gestures, attitudes, behaviors and reactions were goals of analysis about human behavior, but all that data was obtained from the study of movements and behaviors but not and never from the soul of the human being. The uncertainty about these notions of infinity and eternity constitutes a motivation to go along that incredible and mysterious road called life. If we were confident about those concepts, life would be entirely different but not forcibly better. In other words, if we knew all the answers that put us here in first place, then it would mean that we were already very far away from this dimension, though being able to understand our origins, our roots, our source. The creation, our creation. That reminds me when I knew this person, a long time ago when I lived in my country. He lived in the middle of nowhere, far away from civilization, a very isolated part of the country where we could only find rocks, small wooden houses and the simplest means to survive in an environment of that kind. One day, for personal reasons, I took a walk on those mountains, living an inner need to put questions to myself, a sort of necessary introspection, and there he was. After some moments of trivial conversation, we spontaneously started to talk about nature that led us to talk about more complex matters like our existence. At that moment, that simple guy started putting his ideas clearly out and tried to explain me in his words that life is nothing but energy and logic. Apart from that, there is nothing because those two components gave origin to everything, namely the creation. He also explained in his language that we came from a mainstream of energy, a place where we knew everything because we made part of it, and we'll get back to that mainstream of energy and logic, a concept, which some people call reincarnation. No notions about big bangs or black holes, except that fundamentally or eventually they will lead us to the same place. We can call it ignorance, but there is an intrinsic notion about the basics of existence that lives inside this humble and simple human being. Those perceptions make part of that invisible balance of life. Today, as science and technology are continuing to explore all the possible roads leading to evolution, there are more and more people at every single level of society, posing the same questions. They're wondering if there will ever be an answer for this inner doubt, but at the same time, everyone is feeling something that resides within us all, life. Independently of the need that society has for science and technology, as a fundamental component of our evolution, let the basic and mostly existential answers be presented and explained by the creation herself, being sure that the ultimate explanation would be given when we join that mainstream of energy and logic. Let scientists do their work as a natural result that leads to evolution, as it only consists of an improvement in the well-being of humanity. All the rest makes part of the necessary mystery of life. P.S. This small, simple article was dedicated to a great friend of mine who spent his life trying to understand and teach this common subject that makes part of our lives. Professor of philosophy and writer, Michael Woods deserves the respect of all the community that is interested in questioning their origins, interested to find the answers regarding infinity and eternity. Luxembourg, the 2nd of October 2008. Carlos Pacheco. At this point, we are talking about something that in conventional terms is labeled as metaphysics, as it represents an abstract notion, like philosophy has a similar definition, abstract, just because it represents everything that science cannot prove. By learning to relate with each other, people learn to understand, learn to put themselves in others people's shoes, and automatically take an entirely different attitude towards society in general. Relationships can become one of the fundamental keys to find global, social, political, religious and finally economical solutions. Science always fascinated me since I was a teenager, reading all those American magazines from Omni. The first movie that struck me was Stanley Kubrick's 2001, A Space Odyssey, that will stay in the history of cinemas as an anticipation, along with the description of the origins of the human beings, a vision about the future. This learning also proves that, all along time, along life, there will always be artists that will express their thoughts and ideas, even perceptions and beliefs in their way. However, they'll never go far away from a reality that will always be present around us, and each one of us felt in a unique way. Apart the fact that science is fundamental for the development of society, if applied in a positive and constructive sense, it will always be the representation of a vehicle to reach understanding. It serves as a platform to reach a higher level that will be shown to us at the right moment, the time that creation herself will determine so. Don't miss the excellent movie with Jodie Foster, Contact, which is based on a book by the late professor and scientist Carl Sagan. Science is nothing but the expression of creation herself, brought to a minority of human beings in a measured way and according with the global human maturation of our spirits. In this incredible movie, Carl Sagan, apart the fact that he was a scientist, establishes a link between everything that can be translated scientifically and the spirituality that is present in every one of us, human beings. The final meeting with her father represents our inner will that we'll all meet again and surmount this temporary distance that we are forced to accept, still never understanding it. The Diary of Thoughts. End of Part 7. Written by c.Pacheco.